Sure.
Thank you, Jordan.
You're welcome.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's exciting to have a completely full house. We do have one chair up here. There's a couple in the middle if you're just coming in. So thank you for being here. We have Dr. Hochstein here. He's going to be bringing the presentation on AI in the job search. So we're really excited to have him here. We do have a couple of QR codes going around, paper copies of the QR codes either side of the room, and then we also have it on the PowerPoint. So just make sure. How many of you guys are STEM Path students? So yeah, I figured. Okay, so that should serve as your proof that you were here. So just make sure you click the QR code before you leave. That'll be the one that you see on the first slide on the PowerPoint, and then also the ones going around the room. Just to confuse you, we have a second QR code that you'll see at the end of the presentation. That one's totally optional. That is just so you can offer us some feedback on this presentation or any other presentations that you would like for us to offer later in the semester or next semester. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, welcome. I'm Bryan Hochstein. I'm an associate professor of marketing here at the University of Alabama. Have you taken marketing classes in here? Do you take marketing classes? Yes? I'm a sales professor. I asked for engagement, and I won't let you off the hook until I get it. So, all right, so some of you have taken some marketing classes. I teach in our master's program. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I don't have a clicker. I normally like to walk around a lot, but I'll have to stay up here. Everybody get the QR code. I can bring it up again later, but if you want to get it, you got it. You good? All right. 3, it's going once, twice, gone. All right. I'm going to talk about AI in the job search, selling to improve your chances is what I called it. I wasn't really 100% clear what you need to know about AI and looking for a job. And honestly, it'd be a stretch to say I'm any expert about AI. I think it's a stretch for many people to say that they're an expert. It's a very evolving, quickly moving field. If you came here to learn about how to create your own large language model and design some machine robot to get you a job, you're not going to hear about that. So that's not the stuff I know. You probably know more about that than I do because of what you are in STEM. But I'm a sales professor. I worked in sales for a long time. I'm going to tell you about kind of what you need to do in the job search, which you may already know, and then try and throw some ideas of how that relates to sales and also how things in sales might help you in doing that. AI type things from sales. All right, so that's the best I can offer today. I think it'll be useful. It's kind of fun putting it together. This is me. That's my LinkedIn QR. If you want to LinkedIn with me, I'll put it up at the end too. I do a lot of different stuff. I worked in sales for 10 years in retail management, running a food service, kind of a cross between, we used to have a Papa Murphy's pizza here, kind of take and bake, and that and Which. Anybody heard of these two places? I don't think we have either of them anymore. Maybe that we still do, but if we do, I don't know where they are. But we had a business kind of like that, started a long time ago, family business. I worked in that for a while. I got into selling, direct selling. I worked for Time Warner Media in Wisconsin, northeastern Wisconsin, go Green Bay Packers. And I sold up there, ESPN, Home and Garden, all those kind of channels. It was a good career. Along the way, I actually hadn't finished it. When I was your age, I was a college student, but I quit and I went into business and started my own company and all this stuff and whatever. Got married, had kids. Never thought I'd get back to it, but when I worked for Time Warner, they had tuition reimbursement, so I actually ended up getting my bachelor's degree when I was in my mid-30s. Got an MBA at 40, PhD at 46, and here I am 9 years later, so 55 if you're doing the math. Anyways, so I really love this. I got in this job as my third career. I like working with students. I like doing research. I like working with companies. I'm going to Atlanta tomorrow to work with a bunch Insight Global on some sales research stuff. And I was just in the UK doing stuff. I work with companies all over the place. And I really just enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. So I was happy to try and help here. I'm trying to learn a lot about AI and how it's helping sales. So I called myself. Here's a little marketing tip for yourself. If you do something unique or you think you could brand yourself, you can just do it on LinkedIn because you can give yourself whatever title you'd like. So I've studied this stuff called customer success management. I'm currently maybe one of 10, 15 people in the world that's studying it, which is very small. I was one of the first. So I just call myself a global expert because, I am one of the few, right? So I do stuff all over the world. I call myself the doctor of customer success on LinkedIn because I'm probably one of the very few that has a PhD that's studying it. So whatever, that's a way you can use marketing to your advantage. It gets me a lot of good speaking opportunities all over the place and cool trips and things. So think about it. Maybe if you can brand yourself in some way, it could help you. I've done a lot of interview research and really talked to hundreds and even thousands of people in the industry over the last 10 years learning about this stuff. You don't need to know all this stuff. I published lots of articles. I just got this Harvard Business Review last summer. I'm doing more of those. I got a couple textbooks. Anyways, and this year you can't really live and not try and figure out what AI is going to do, right? Where are you going to use it? How is it going to impact what you do? I don't know. I don't necessarily want to learn about AI. I mean, it's kind of cool, but I don't necessarily need to learn about AI. But I actually do need to learn about AI because otherwise I'll quickly become irrelevant, right? So I'm just trying to learn. So I ask people a lot of questions. I go out and learn what people are doing in industry, and that's what I'll try and bring to you today. Some things you may have, probably most have heard of already, but maybe not. Some that, well, if you get one or two good things or more, great. That's what we got. So this is our little agenda. How many of you are familiar with this prompt engineering thing? Probably a fair amount of you, right? Less than I think. Now seriously, hands up. Come on. Sales class here today. All right, so some. I would expect you would be, because if you are doing stuff in any kind of analytical modeling, or I don't know what you all do in engineering, but you can use AI to create a lot of different prompts that would help you to get to doing things that you used to have to think and understand and know all of the code and everything, right? So you're probably doing more of this than maybe some of our marketing students are. But we'll talk a bit about that and how you can use that as a kind of a cheat code to be a little bit better in your job search. And then, what does a job search look like? Hopefully you all got that, but I taught GBA classes in professional development for a couple of years here. I didn't teach it this year, but I taught them, and I taught a lot about the job, how you go about getting a job. It turns out it's almost exactly sales. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the job search, but then I'm just going to say, hey, it's a lot like sales, because I know a lot more about sales than the job search, and the things are like 99% correlated. So I'm going to talk you through the sales process a little bit, so you can start thinking about your job search as more than just something you got to do. It's actually an opportunity to learn how to sell something, product being yourself. All right? Then we're going to talk a little bit on each one of these steps, how AI may be a part of it. I'll give you some unique things, and then I just got some closing thoughts. So this prompt engineering thing, I like it. I hadn't really thought about it too much. I was writing this textbook here this last summer, sales management textbook, and we were down to the very end. Everything was written. I wrote it all. My co-author and I wrote it all from human intelligence. I'll call that HI today, human intelligence. Our knowledge, things we look up, stuff we know from being professionals in this space. But the last thing you got to do, what do you think the last thing, when you write a textbook, you send it off to the publisher, you got all the stuff to do, what do you think is the last thing that you want to do? Anybody have a guess? Editing's all been done. Good guess.
Have a student read it?
Well, that might be a good idea, but we didn't bother with that. But anyway, it's a good idea. A little test market, kind of, but we didn't do that. Hopefully it'll be good. What's the part of classes that you don't like probably the most? Homework, yeah. Well, homework was all right because they were kind of fun. I wrote cases and stuff, but multiple choice test questions are like the most boring thing in the world to write, okay? They're terrible for you to take them too, but they're also really just dull to write. So I asked the publisher, I said, I think I could use AI to do this, right? And is that okay? I don't want to get in trouble. Like, oh yeah, totally. We got a prompt for that and we figured it out. So they sent me this little prompt here. And it says, here's the source text I'll be referencing. Please write 6 multiple choice questions for a sales management textbook, blah, blah, blah. It's all this stuff here, right? You can read that. I'd have to go and I'd have to find for each learning objective the piece of text that we wrote that would fit with the learning objective. I'd load that in. I use ChatGPT 4.0 for this one. Then I'd load this prompt, and then it would give me these questions. I'd read through them. I'd pick some that I liked and whatever, so I used my human intelligence at the end to still make it seem like I did something. What could have been a week of me trying to avoid work all week long because I didn't want to write these questions, turned into an afternoon and an evening of just getting it done. So 12 chapters done one day. Easy. And they went through and vetted them. A lot of people have looked at them, so it's not all just ChatGPT at the end of the day, but the beginning point was there. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I wonder where else I can use this. So I started looking into this prompt engineering. And you guys, a lot of you are actual engineering students. For us in marketing, prompt engineering sounds pretty like we're doing some science. So we're going to do some prompt engineering. And it turns out it's pretty straightforward. And I like it. Now, the idea of why engineer prompts, it's the idea that you can, anything you're going to be repeating a lot of times, you can save yourself a lot of work. Instead of just randomly asking questions and what should I ask about this company or whatever, you can kind of bake that into a prompt. You can find some that work. You can fine tune them. It makes things go quicker, better. You can do it in larger numbers. And when you're like trying to find a job, you're going to apply for what, 2, 3, maybe 100, maybe, I don't know, in your industry. Might be 1, 2, 3 if you're really great and you got some good connections. Might be several hundred for some people. So, which doesn't mean you're not great. Just means sometimes that's the way it goes, right? For our students. So it could turn into a very, very large task. So when you use things like prompts, you need to be clear, specific. Probably the other slide is a little bit more relevant, but you're going to want to write prompts, and you're going to want to have nice, clear, specific. I'm going to give you some steps on the next slide. I'll share these slides. You can have them. So, and you want to start writing prompts that help you to make your AI be more than just a tool, right? AI kind of starts as like a tool. It's sort of like Google, but it reads everything for you and gives you a summary, right? I mean, it's kind of what it does in some ways. And that's one way you can use it. You can I was asking questions today for this presentation, things I didn't want to look up, whatever. I just ask it, and it gives me a nice summary. I read it. I think, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I would probably have written myself. I'll use some of that, real basic stuff. So that's a nice tool. You can use it like that. But you can also create an intern. I like to say the next step would be like creating an intern. So you start writing prompts. It'll be like being your AI can become an intern. How many of you have been an intern in the past? Okay. Did you get like clear steps and everything? Did they tell you what to do? Ask you in the back.
For certain tasks, yes.
Okay. In most cases, we don't normally hire an intern and say, okay, well, there's, where we engineer the rocket engines. Why don't you just go ahead and do that, right? Okay, we probably say, here, you're going to do this very specific task, follow these steps or something, right? Because you're not really like a proven thing yet, right? So AI is kind of like that. It can be an intern. You can maybe make it be better. I'll give you these slides. I don't want to read through all this stuff and waste too much time. Now, I made this for a sales presentation I was doing, so you would just have to translate this into your job work, but you can assign AI a role. So you can tell it it's a salesperson, it's a marketing expert, a billing specialist. You can tell it it's a hiring manager. You can tell it it's a recruiter for a large company. And then it'll start thinking like that as it gives you some answers. You can tell it what you want. Like, do you want to know about a company? And how much do you want to know? Do you want it in bullet points or a table? You can do stuff like that. Who is this for? Is this for you, or is it for people that you're going to show it to your boss or whatever? In your case, it's probably for you, right? It's for a student, a STEM student or whatever you are, looking for a job that's currently a senior in college in the University of Alabama, and you want information on this company, right? So it's written towards you. Can define the industry. You probably wouldn't say B2B or B2C. You'd probably say things like what industry, right? This is for professional. I'm a person looking for a job in whatever kind of industry, this kind of specialty, whatever. Now give it a task. In this case, it's a marketing thing. Create a one-page monthly email newsletter and a friendly yet authoritative tone for a B2B audience, including sections about feature releases, company news, and new content. So right now, if you answered all these questions and you told it where to go to look for this information, you could probably get a decent newsletter. You want to break complex tasks into steps. So rather than requesting a complicated task, I don't want to read this stuff to you. Just want to break it down. Tell it what it needs to do, step by step by step, just like you would for an intern, right? Here's a bunch of different steps. Usually, I would think in a job search, you could point it to like a company's web page, or you could load information in for each job, or you could probably find ways to be more creative and smart students that you are. Do it more efficiently than an old man could do it like myself, but I could probably get there pretty close just doing it in a sort of manual way. But you could probably have a draw on a whole bunch of different websites if you wanted to, and create different information, background information, things about who works there, what kind of jobs are they hiring for, who has been hired there before, where do people go that used to work there, who works there now based on LinkedIn profiles. You could ask it all kinds of things, right? That would be probably helpful to you. And it'll probably, you can tell it what you want. Do you want a table? Do you want it in a chart? Do you want it in bullet points or essay form? And then you can ask it to get better, right? So you try it, first prompt, it's probably not going to be great. You keep adding and refining, but the idea is as you get into your job search. I mean, what is the average? What do you think you're going to have to, how many you got to apply for jobs? You're like 10, 20, 30? I don't know. What's that?
I did 10 when I did mine.
And you got a job?
We're still finding out.
Okay, all right. So, and is there like an industry standard? Do students talk about how many you apply for?
Years on it's like 200.
Okay, somewhere between 1 and 100 or 200 or 300. Okay, anyways, don't get discouraged by it. AI can help you a lot, and we'll get into more of it. But prompt engineering at the beginning, once you start seeing what you need, and I'll give you some pieces that you could use, probably give you some creative ideas of what you could put into your prompts. I'd recommend that you start keeping some prompts. There's a lot of other ways you can do this, and if you're computer engineers, I'm really basic here, but for just normal person, writing prompts for generative AI is pretty simple. And once you find ones that work well, you can just recreate them in all different settings for all different companies. Can make your task be much simpler, right? You can also be like way cooler than my way, but I'm not. I'm just a sales guy, so that's what I do. All right. I don't think there's anything new in this at all, but I'm going to play it because it's like the 2 minutes about job hunting that we're gonna talk about here. The rest we're going to talk about sales and how it relates. And we picked this. I picked this person because it's 2 minutes. Everything else was like 20 minutes, and I didn't want that. So just a quick video, assuming we have sound and everything. Let's see.
We've got about 50
we gotta
million
watch.
followers.
We
We're in
gotta
the
pay for our
billions.
pay
And we're
here.
a small
Play.
team.
Okay, we're gonna skip that.
Hi, I'm Marat from Emotion. I've been working in recruitment and in human resources for years, and I would like to give you a few tips on how to structure your job search and which are the steps to take while searching for the new role. Start by setting your goals. Which is your preferred role, industry, type of company, whether you are willing to relocate for this role. Create a list with target companies and job titles that you are interested in, and then match with your background and experience. Be specific. Use your personal and professional connections to identify connections and opportunities in your target companies list. LinkedIn is a great tool for finding and connecting to your target group. Remember being as warm and professional as possible. Nobody owes you anything, and in fact, some connections might be doing you a huge favor. Prepare a strong resume, online and offline. It is important that your resume is well organized and polished. You also want to make sure that it is a match for the job you're applying for. Your CV and your cover letter is your chance to sell yourself, and it usually takes seconds for recruiters to decide whether it could fit or not. Create a routine and eliminate distractions. Looking for a job is a full-time job itself, so the only way to get it done is by minimizing distractions around you. Find a proper and dedicated workspace for your search. Turn off your mobile phone and stop checking social media. Multitasking will lower the quality of your work and will prevent you from being productive. Stay optimistic. This is probably the hardest part, especially if you've been job hunting for months. Please do what it takes to keep you happy and confident during the job search. Keep in mind that no one wants to hire someone who is angry or sad. Denial or holding a grudge will not make you happy. Don't put your life on hold. Motivation is your key to success.
Okay.
Good luck and
Remember, nobody wants to hire anybody that's angry or sad, right? But he told you turn off your social media. So, I mean, I don't know how those two things could coexist, but some good points there. Anything new? Did you learn anything new in that? Probably, hopefully you know it, right? But that's all sales stuff, right? So I want to tell you just a little bit, and that's all I'm really going to talk about in like the job process of getting a job. I think you got to think about it. I do think you should make it be at least a part-time job. You know, set aside some time each day, a couple days a week, however you want to do it. But do think about it as something more than just randomness, right? And start thinking about prompts and stuff and a process, right? So I'm going to introduce the sales process to you. How many of you taken a sales class? Anybody? Oh, good. I can say anything I want. It'll be true. I actually wrote a paper about it, sort of. It's got a really long, this sounds scientific, doesn't it? Proactive value creation via structural ambidexterity, customer success management, and the modularization of frontline roles. If you need to sleep at night, just read that 3 times and you'll be out like a light bulb. But anyways, the paper we did, it's about new current selling practices in tech firms, basically, and that's where I study my stuff. And the only reason I tell you anything about it is this picture, which you don't have to memorize or know anything about. I'm not even going to use the same terms. I just want to show you a picture. Now, sales is a process, right? There's a process going on. You start by needing to find some new clients, people that could use your product, and then there's a whole process of how you connect that need they have with what you're selling. We'll talk about them. And I literally just use, I'm not going to dwell on that too much, just say it's a moving process, right? And I'm going to show you this real quick. So when you're applying for jobs, when we say you might apply for 1 to 300 jobs, you're going to start that process like this. Now you can start it again. Every time you apply for a job, you're starting that process. Each new company you apply to is like a new customer you're trying to get, right? You're going to do some investigation. You're not going to go really super deep for each one. You're just applying. But you want to know something. You want to be a little bit customized. You want to be a little bit personalized. But you're going to probably apply to 50 of them or something, we'll say, as our number. So you're not going to do all of the research up front, right? Well, then you're going to actually get to do some interviews, right? First interview, second interview. And you probably are making them bigger is the point, right? You're going to do more research. You're going to dig in a little deeper for those, right? You need to be more knowledgeable, but you might do 10 or 20 of those. I mean, if you're applying to 50, 60 jobs, and then ultimately you might get invited to a more lengthy one or an in-person visit. Then you're going to do lots of research, right? You're going to want to know everything there is to know about that company and the people that work there, what they do, how you could use that information. So just realize there's varying degrees of how much of this stuff you do, depending on what part of the job application process you're in. You're still wondering, where's the AI in all this? There's no AI. Well, I used AI to make this slide, so they're really ugly slides. I do have this notion right now that all my students are making these awesome AI-generated slides. I think I'm starting to like just the old school slides now, because if everybody can make cool slides, then they're not cool anymore. So I just went for black and white and plain with the Alabama logo. That's it. I could have made them cool. I thought, I'm going to go with simple. But this is what AI told me was the sales process. I thought that's good enough. I'll work off this. Prospecting, preparation, approach, presentation, handling objections, closing, and follow-up. I literally teach a fall class. We pretty much, that's the class right there. We spend a whole semester learning how to do that stuff, right? So in about the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try and teach you a whole semester. But prospecting. What's prospecting? Identifying potential customers who might be interested in your product or service. How does that relate to you as a job candidate? This side of the room. Anybody? Yeah, right. You need a job. Do they need to hire? They need to buy a product. That's you, right? I mean, it sounds terrible to say it that way, but your product is the value you bring to a company. Companies are looking to fill a problem that they have, a need they have. They are hiring for a reason. They need somebody to do a job, right? You could maybe do that job. So you're the product. Company is the customer of yours, I guess. You're the salesperson and the product in this case, so it's a little bit tied together. All right, so prospecting. I usually put up pictures of like miners and stuff, from the gold rush or whatever, but prospecting is just that. You're trying to find likely places that you could sell or they would hire you, right? And if you're going to go to those places, if you're a STEM student, you're probably not applying to be an accountant, right? I mean, you might be able to, but you're probably picking something in your line of work that you want to do. So you're prospecting. You just got to ask yourself questions. I just put some in here off the top of my head. Where do you want to work? What companies interest you? What is your product? What is your skills? What are your skills? Where do they fit? Just question yourself, and we call this, this video said set goals or understand what your goals are. We'd call this an ideal customer profile in sales. But what are the jobs you want? Like, where are they? Is there a geographic setting? Is there an income level? Is there a type of whatever you do that's most important to you? Is there other things? Get those parameters so you get close to where you need to land first, and then that'll help you to have a better job search. Then you say, okay, well, here's the AI. All right, so the second half of each of these slides is the AI part. I didn't really use these totally. I looked up things that had good reviews. And the problem is, for most of the stuff, there's a cost, right? So if you have money and it's all great, you can invest a lot into this and you can do really a lot. But I'll give you some options that are sort of like, here's what you can do. And what I'd like to do is say, you could look at something like this Job Copilot and see what it does, this product. and then you could probably figure out a way to do it by yourself, right? Using some generative AI product if you wanted to. You maybe won't get exactly the same, but you could kind of pick how you want to do this. So Job Copilot, I got the website here. It's a tool that automates job applications, matches jobs to your profile, and builds resumes and cover letters. Obviously, you need all of that stuff, right? We did a thing, I'm not sure if they're still using it. We used to use a thing called VMOC in the College of Business, which does all this kind of thing too. There's probably 50 of them. I'm not going to list all of them, but look for something like this. See what something like this does, and then figure out which way you could do that, okay? Figure out how you could make sure your job applications, that you're matching jobs, that your resume looks good, and that your cover letters are effective, okay? Pretty easy to do that with some generative AI tools. Maybe not all of it, but figure out what it does and which pieces you need, and then do that. There's all different kind of resume builders. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I also think you should use some HI, human intelligence, in this, right? You know, I don't have that many students right now. I teach master's students, but when I was teaching more, I was teaching a couple hundred undergrads in this professional development. I was willing to look at their resumes. I'm not sure all your professors would, but I was willing to look at them, and only maybe less than 10% would ever even ask me to do it, which is fine. Less work for me. I make the same money either way, but I was willing to do that. So you should probably do your best to get your resume right, but then maybe ask somebody that is actually knowledgeable in the field that could give it a check, right? So do that. Find any kind of resume builder. And then here, you engineer prompts, right? You need to develop a system that's going to help you look at certain job websites that are right for your industry. They're probably different for everybody in this room, depending on what you're doing. What kind of companies you want to work for, what types of cities you want to be in, where it should be looking. Give it that ideal customer profile or the goals you set for your job search, and have the prompt look through all of the data that's out there. It'll pull it and give you a nice list of 20 top jobs or new ones that weren't there last week, or whatever you tell it to do. Your assistant can go out and do some of this work. You don't just have to randomly go out and it's Tuesday, I'll go search all the websites. You can do that if you want to read them all and see what's out there, but you can make your intern or maybe your assistant, these prompts, do it too. It might find some you missed. It may give you, I'll get a lot more done if you do that, okay? And then just be inquisitive. I'm giving you both AI in general, but use AI to do this. Just learn about your space. It's really the time to learn if you're going to be on the job market. I try to help students to get all different kinds of knowledge things. Learn about stories of different stuff and read news articles, and because invariably you'll be in some interview somewhere, and if you can pull out something you saw on a news feed last week about this company or this industry or something changing in regulations or whatever, there's a lot of that going on right now, you will be instantly more knowledgeable than most people that are interviewing for that job. So be inquisitive. Have AI help you to be inquisitive. Try and find ways to keep yourself current using probably just generative AI, some prompts that'll give you some news feeds. There's lots of different ways that are old school or new school to get a lot of information coming at you, and you can read it. Anyways, this has been my quote of the year, I guess. I don't know why. I like this song, and somebody pointed out this line. The song from 1985, and it says, from Tears for Fears, the band, very old song. Welcome to your life, there's no turning back. So when you go into the job hunt, you may or may not be interested to be doing it. You may want to just stay in school. You may want to just go home and lay under the covers and forget about it. But the reality is, this is your life. Welcome to it. There's no turning back. And it just keeps going. So you're going to have to engage yourself in this process. I'm saying, try and figure out how you would personally use some AI to get at this basic stuff of who would I apply for, and it'll be good. All right? Preparation. We've already talked about some preparation, where would you be applying, but now we're getting a little deeper, right? You've found a qualified list. You're starting to qualify different jobs. Are these good jobs? Are these bad jobs? Are these things I'm qualified for? Are they not? Did I apply to 200 jobs today? Absolutely none of which would ever even consider hiring me based on my experience, but I feel good because I did 200. That's a waste of time. If you applied to only 2 jobs, but they might hire you, versus 200 that would never hire you, it'd be better to apply to 2, right? So prepare. Figure out which ones would actually maybe do well. My son was a student here in engineering a while back, and he's sort of an optimistic dreamer person, and somehow he had quit school here, or the university asked him to quit or something. And he was applying for jobs to work for the International Space Station thing up in Huntsville, and he was very convinced just because he had a lot of knowledge of working at Five Guys and stuff that they would probably like him to do that job. And I'm like, I hate to tell you, buddy, but, they are looking for a bachelor's degree anyways, right? So, yeah, it never worked out. So you can go that path, but try to be realistic, right? So what do you know? What do you need to know? Who, where, what, why? You ask these questions a lot, right? Just start really thinking about it. This is your full-time job for right now. Once you get to it, get to know the space really, really well, right? I want to talk for a minute about these spin questions. Anybody heard of spin questions before? This doesn't involve bicycles at all or anything. No? Okay, you can Google it, or you can, Copilot it, or ChatGPT it. You don't have to use these. This is a sales thing I teach. I don't really even necessarily like this exact approach anymore, but I like it because you can easily find information on it anywhere, because it's around since like the 1980s. Spin is when you go to ask questions to find out from a potential customer, like what do they need, what are they trying to buy for, what's broken in their business right now that you might be able to help them with. You got to ask different kinds of questions. I was telling my students, it's not like just going to a tailgate party where you're just going to talk about randomness, right? You want to have a purpose. So you can use spin questions. S stands for situation. You don't have to worry so much about the questions, but when you're starting to research a business, you'll want to know about their situation, right? Like what's going on there? Why are they hiring? Are they expanding? Are they opening a new division? Is their product growing? Have they been taken over by a new company? How many people work in the department? Where are they located? These are just situational things. There's good, useful information, most of which you can hopefully find before you ever talk to them. You can use AI, Google, whatever, to search out situation stuff and get most of it. Ideally, you'll come to the point where you're like, there's like 5 things that I really would like to know about their situation that I can't find anywhere, whatever it is, right? Something technical, whatever. Those are great questions to ask them then later, or put into a cover letter. Their situation, you've done a lot of homework, and you indicate that, and then you ask them something that probably most haven't gone deep enough to figure out. Then there's problem questions. You may or may not have that. You already know their problem is that they're hiring for some reason. If you're selling something, you definitely want to find out what the problem is. What is the problem they're trying to solve? And you may ask some simple questions like this of them, because if they're trying to hire 5 new engineers or whatever, you might want to ask them, well, what are those people going to be doing? What is the problem you're trying to solve by having? Is it, again, what is the thing, and how best can you address it, right? You want to know what the problems are. If you figure out what their problem they're trying to solve by hiring, you can then position yourself to be a good candidate for that job, if you are. You can't make yourself be a good candidate if you don't fit. Okay. Implications, getting less important to you in the job search, but I'll just tell you the whole spin. Implications are more about like, well, is that an important problem you need to solve? Clearly, if they're hiring, they're trying to solve it. But if you're in sales, sometimes there's a problem, but they're not trying to solve it. You might be going down the wrong road. So you got to know. And then needs pay off is like, well, what would be good about your life now if this was solved? And this is the one where I think it's kind of salesy at the end, like how much better would your life be if you had this new car or something. I don't really like that approach too much, but I do think situation is very important, and finding out about like what's the purpose of why they're hiring and how would you solve that problem that they have. If you got those two, you'd be further ahead than most. Okay, what value do you add? Really, that's why anybody's talking to you. They think you. Have you ever thought about the fact that you represent value? You do. And you're not like a $100 bill or whatever. You could be. They're going to turn you into money. I mean, they'll turn your effort into money. That's what companies do. But you represent value. Each and every single one of you. You have something that some company is looking for. You're learning and training and paying a lot of money to get an education and getting the best education possible. And you come out of here with some skills and some stuff that you know that can be turned into a company ultimately making more money. So you represent value to them. We're screaming off over there. It's all right. My stuff's not that exciting. All right. So these are things you got to be preparing. Like, what are these? What do you got to know? How are you doing it? I'm going to get into something here now real quick, and I'm going to show you a little bit more detail on this one thing because I just think it's utterly cool. You might not really use it at this very early stage of the job placement, the job search, but it's cool. So it's called Crystal Knows. Anybody know crystalknows.com? Okay, cool. I'll show you about it in a second. I'll come back to that. For this, use prompts, of course, to just do your search. I talked to several people in the sales world. When they go out and do this step of the sales process, they have prompts they run. They now run these prompts, and they can have a dossier on whatever potential client they're going to talk to in about 5 minutes They read through it, they look up a few things to clarify stuff and make sure they understand it. And within 5 to 10, 15 minutes, they're ready to go. Talk to a company like they know pretty much about them. They do it every day, they're good at it, whatever. Try and come up with that kind of stuff. What would be the information you would want in a dossier on a company that you might be talking to? And if you can put that into a prompt, then you can get it fast, right? Doesn't mean you're done, but that's the starting point. You still need to think and use your brain. Okay. And use multiple sources. That's the other thing. AI is not always right. AI is not always complete. Depending on which one you use, it's going to have different information. Definitely look into like actual news articles. They often link the articles. Read a little bit. Go deeper. You don't want to walk in and start talking about things you learned on AI and have them be just utterly wrong. So be sure to use your own mind. Use other stuff. Use different sources to get your fine-tune your knowledge a little bit. Okay. And be sure to read Beyond AI. Human intelligence is what gets jobs, not AI. Okay. So I'll say that again and again. I want to show you this really quick. If this is available to you, you can get 5 for free, I found out today when I signed up for it. You can also pay to get more. I don't know. There may be other ways to get at this. I just looked at their website today. It's called Crystal Knows. So I put in my LinkedIn profile, and it says, Bryan Hochstein, I tend to be persuasive and charismatic, often able to communicate a bold vision to others based on my LinkedIn profile, which is what I do on LinkedIn, so it fits me pretty well. I'm adventurous, sociable, and pioneering. My personality is an influencer. I tend to be passionate, adventurous, blah, 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 blah. Okay, all this stuff. It's using the DISC, D-I-S-C, personality wheel, which you can read about if you want to learn about that. It shows me where I am on these scales of risk tolerant to risk averse, trusting to skeptical, optimistic to pragmatic, all this stuff. And interestingly enough, as every single personality test I ever do, I tend to be like exactly in the middle of the thing. I'm a chameleon sales guy. I don't have a strong personality in any direction. I can kind of range in any direction, and I'm comfortable with it. I just happen to be built that way. I don't know why, but I'm good in almost all situations, but not. I would never be an engineer because that's an more extreme situation. That's a little bit further out where you have a different type of personality that gets you there. But I could talk to you. I could sell you stuff, but I couldn't probably do your job. So I thought this was pretty real. Now, oddly enough, I only had one name from here, so I put in Lindsay Dill. Now, I don't know Lindsay at all, and we're going to find out if Lindsay has similar traits to me or if this thing is just bunk. But anyways, it says Lindsay is likely a quick learner with strong creative skills and may bounce around between many interests. True? Okay. Influencer, you'll be creative and energetic. They'll be similarly creative with more empathy and gentleness. Okay, and then this tells me how to sell to this person. This is the point of all this. So I'm telling you this, right? The program tells me here, here's how I sell to Lindsay, right? I need to know that while you're both dominant in your friendliness and rapport building, it'll take extra energy for you both to analyze finer details, because we're going to be caught up in talking about the Alabama basketball or something and forget to talk about all the details because we must have salespeople personalities. This is called social selling. There happens to be AI now that will give you this profile, and it's usually pretty accurate. I will see if it's accurate. I'll show you the last one. We were very similar on this chart. I don't know if this is true. If you're kind of, it could be because you're an educator. I mean, I don't know you at all, but I mean, I thought, well, is this just wrong? I saw other people do this at a conference recently, and it was kind of all over. So you could try it and see if it works. Point is, I wouldn't use this for like early prospecting, but if you're going into a meeting where you're meeting with like the hiring manager or something, it might be kind of cool to know what makes that person tick. You might know if it's a real specific industry anyways. In the sales, you're working with everybody, so you kind of got it. You don't know. But you might know. But it's a cool party trick, if nothing else, to use Crystal Knows, and you can kind of tell what makes somebody else tick and how to address your presentation to them. There's a lot more information. I just put a couple other screenshots to show you. So think about that. Take a look at it. Maybe something you'll learn. You can understand somebody's personality a little, at least their business personality a little bit better before you ever even meet them. Okay, so it's kind of cool. Approach, that's the next thing. Making the initial contact with the prospect either through a call, email, or face-to-face meeting. Again, I just put questions. Who will you contact? What needs to be said? What stage are you at? Where do you make contact? Elevator pitch and beyond. Practice, practice, practice. You should practice in this case, right? I didn't go out and do this myself. I was talking to some people that have. I think Notebook LM is one that does pretty well. Like you can put your resume in and it'll give you a summary of it back to you. so you could actually start seeing how other people that read it would see you when they read it. You could get that as sort of a proxy for what like a recruiter might see. If you read the summary that Google gives you, Notebook LM, and it doesn't seem to fit you, you might want to work on your resume a little bit, okay? You can also you can put in some other things you have about your job packet. It can make it into a podcast, so if you want to like listen to what it says about you. In case here, I'm just thinking you need to practice, but you also kind of need to know what image you're presenting, right? So sometimes having these AI external sources look at what you're presenting out there can help you to realize maybe you're not presenting what you think you are. So just try that, maybe. There may be other applications for it, but I think this idea of before you go to market with your product yourself, kind of make sure you got it right. I got one of my students, he's a master's student. I had lunch with him the other day. We had a guest speaker here, and I asked him how life's going. He said, well, I've applied and had a lot of first interviews, but I've gotten no callbacks. I've done like 15 of them. I said, well, why don't you come to my office next week and we'll do a mock interview and we'll just see. You're probably saying one or two things wrong, something. I mean, nothing against you. You're a great candidate. Somebody should hire you. I mean, it's like he's a perfect person to talk to. Really nice. I like him. But there's probably something in his approach that's coming off wrong. So I'll be the human intelligence that you could do it this way, though, too. So try and get a read on what you're sending out to the world when you're sending it out. Of course, I always have this word, triangulate a good message. So you're starting to think about reaching out, messaging, talking to people. You want to make sure what you're sending is correct. You want to use multiple sources. So use a couple of different generative AIs to do this. And just think about, I'm going to market now, right? This go-to-market strategy we talk about a lot. You're going to start being a job candidate, and you want to be a consistently good one, and you want to have all of your stuff ready to go. You're going to launch your job search, and you want to look at it from a bunch of different angles and prepare for it. There's an elevator pitch generator. There's a bunch of these too. This one looked okay. I'm not endorsing it by any means. Galaxy.ai. You can literally speak into any one of the Gen AI things, I believe, an elevator pitch, and you can ask it to critique it. It'll give you, you can ask it to ask you questions afterwards. You can do little role plays with just ChatGPT if you want to, either in, I think there's a plug-in thing now where it can do voice for you, but you can just do it like in text too. So you can tell it your elevator pitch. You all familiar with an elevator pitch, I hope? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good, good. I don't want to bore you on that. You should have one, but that's just the start, right? That's the start of your conversation, but practice it. You can practice it with real people, but practice it with Gen AI. It's important to be prepared for this kind of stuff, right? So your approach, practice with AI and humans. Get comfortable, know your story, and be able to converse. My students are master's students. They're smart, bright. If you give them any opportunity to have notes in front of them, they will read stuff to me. And I will say, I am going to give you a low grade if you keep reading stuff to me, and they'll still want to keep reading stuff to me. Don't fall into the trap of reading stuff. And it's really good to prepare and script and do stuff like that if you need to do it, but try really hard to get good at presenting and being able to do it without reading it, okay? I can tell sometimes when they're reading or when they're going from memory and they're not reading. I prefer the second. That's okay if you need that, but people reading stuff to you is just not conversation. You got to be able to converse. So if you aren't good at conversing with somebody, practice it with AI. There's all kinds of tools out there. You can find, in 5 minutes, you can find a whole bunch of them. If you do nothing else, just get good at being on a Zoom call and not reading notes. It's so easy when they're on Zoom, right? You all do some kind of Zoom or Teams or whatever. It's so easy. You're sitting there looking at this thing and you got your notes right over here on this screen or down here. Nobody even can tell. But I can always tell, every single time. And so everybody hiring you can tell too, right? They're reading me something now. They have a prepared answer, which is nice for preparation, but we want to hire somebody who can come in and, that is adaptable to the situation, right? So try to get good at that. Practice that. Presentation. These start getting less and less AI just because, the further you get into stuff, that's what I love about teaching sales. AI has taken over our education world, but in what I teach, you got to be able to show up and talk me into something, or use logic and all kinds of stuff. And you can use AI to prepare. You can use AI to do the best to get to my doorstep. But once you're here, I don't want to talk to your AI, right? So I want to talk to you and see what you know, right? So by this point, you should have built a good knowledge, right? You're starting to know these companies. You're getting down to your in-person meetings, maybe. You're well prepared using all these tools we have. Hopefully they're pretty obvious to you. There is a company called Copian AI. I don't know how friendly they are to just the individual user. I do know their CEO and stuff. Very cool story. I don't have time to tell you the whole story right now, but they developed this role play thing, and it's really lifelike, and it's really cool. So you could practice doing role plays with something like that. You can do them through Gen AI. You can kind of recreate them in a poor man's version if you don't have the money to do it. But there's a bunch of them out there. The Copiant one is the best one I've ever seen. You probably got some practice ones you could at least try with there. It's not going to be specific to your job. It's not invented to do that, but we're using them for, I'm not, but many sales schools are for doing student role plays. They're really lifelike. They give great coaching advice. Try and find something like that. VMOC had one. Just, I'm going to let you look around because it literally changes week to week. I don't know what they all are, but there's plenty of them. But practice your role play. Practice talking to another person, and you could do it live too. You don't have to use AI. You could talk to a roommate. You could talk to a professor if you have a professor that. Most of us, you'd be surprised how few students. Maybe it's different in your engineering school and your schools, but not that many students ever. Nobody comes. I have office hours. I don't know when they are because nobody ever comes. But I don't really have any. I don't know. I mean, come talk to me. I'm always in my office, and if you come by, I'll talk to you. I'll help you. I mean, really, you're welcome. Houston 3009. You can be my student if you would like some advice on this stuff. I will be gone the next 2 days in Atlanta for a business meeting. I'll be here next week. All right, game planning. I like to use this term, game planning. Get yourself ready, right? Know what you're going to do. Know what you're going to say. You got to be prepared. You have to be fluid at being able to do it. Don't be scared by that. It doesn't have to be like ready for Broadway or anything. Just be human, right? Just be natural. Just be authentic. That's what I'm looking for. I would rather have a student that appears nervous, knows their stuff, and I can tell they're genuine, than the person that can give me a slick pitch and I can tell they maybe memorized it. I mean, you don't have to be the most perfect person. Just don't be afraid to talk to somebody. If you have knowledge and experience, they'll be interested and they'll start asking questions. You get into stuff and it'll go really good from there. So don't be afraid of it. I have students, sales students, master students. So they come to my office. They do these role plays. I meet with them in class, 30 times a semester. They'll be doing these role plays, and some of them are just shaking. And I'm afterwards, were you nervous? I'm like, it's okay. I mean, you survived, right? We made it through. Haven't lost any students yet doing role plays, so you can make it, all right? Humans get hired. Be someone that they want to hire and work with. That's kind of my point. You asked me about AI. I think use AI to prepare, get yourself ready. Humans are the ones that get hired. Handling objections, we'll go quick. We don't have much time left. In sales, you have to overcome objections. A client says, I don't want to buy this, it's too expensive. I don't want to buy this, it doesn't fit. I don't want to buy this, we don't have time to implement it. You have to be able to, you can't just say, okay, I'll see you next year. You could say that, but you'll not work in sales very long if you do. So you have to have ways to overcome it. I'm just going to give you a very simple method. I won't go much into it. CRC method. I will encourage you to think about this. CRC, clarify, respond, confirm. Clarify, respond, confirm. I tell my students this over and over and over and over and over again. They always forget to do it. But if you forget, remember nothing else. Before you respond to somebody asking you a tough question, I think that would be your objection. It's not really a true objection. They're designed to ask you a tough question in a job opportunity, right? What do you do when this happens? What was something you did that was difficult? Whatever. You could roll right into your response. That's what most people do. You just go right into saying something. I would encourage you, because it shows a lot, to clarify that. To say, oh, a great question. Can I just clarify it before I get into it? Are you asking about something when I was a student, or are you asking about something that was challenging in my others? I don't know, whatever it is, right? Ask them a clarifying question. It gives them a chance to restate it to you. It gives you a chance to think. It shows that you're listening and you are trying to empathize with what they're asking and give them a more correct and complete answer. Okay? I think it's a super simple thing to do. It helps you out. If you just jump right into response, they'll know it's canned, that it's you've got it ready to go. If you ask them and then you adapt your answer a little bit, you'll just appear a lot more like you're actually engaged in the conversation, right? So called CRC method. Clarify what the objection is. In sales, they can say it's too expensive, and I can say, well, okay, can you give me some more details on that? Why is it too expensive? Because we're kind of in line with the market. Well, it's not really it's too expensive. It's just that our budget is all allocated for the next 3 months, and we have a free spending freeze. And they'll tell you a lot more information sometimes, right? And then you can adjust and see, well, is there room for me to sell them something? In this case, they'll give you a little bit more detail. You can respond then with a nice response, something you have a few moments to think about. And then before you move on, you say, does that answer your question? Is that okay? I mean, we might, if you're leading the conversation, maybe not the same in a job interview, but normally you want to make sure that they're good with it before you move on. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere if you don't answer that question. Make sure, and if they say, well, yeah, but I mean, I was really looking for something more about your professional life or something, then try again, right? And then you get a better chance. If you just don't do that, you never know if you gave a good answer or not. You don't have any input. Handling tough questions about being prepared. We've talked about it. There's tons of things you could have AI tell you. I know Glassdoor, this is old news, but they have a listing of like people put in Glassdoor the interview questions they got during interviews, so you could look into that kind of stuff. I think AI probably could come up with some reasonable questions that companies ask, maybe from actual data. I'm not sure, so you'd have to do a little digging into it, but try and prepare yourself for these tough questions. I know everybody would tell you that, but think about it. Like, come up with like what are the top 20 questions and have good responses ready to go, but always clarify still to make sure you're answering the right question. Tough questions show interest and provide opportunities for you to differentiate yourself from other candidates. So really look at it as a good thing. They ask you a tough question, this is your shot to actually get the job. Right? How you respond to this one, CRC. If a few of you remember that and do it, you get the job. Just LinkedIn message me and say, I got the job. I use CRC. I'll know what it means, okay? Okay, we're almost done. Closing. Now we gotta be done. We got 3 minutes, I'll close. 2 minutes maybe. This is the number one thing I teach my students. Ask for the job. Ask for the business. I have students do role plays with me all the time. I tell them 100 times in class. You got to get to the end of that sales call, and you got to ask me if I'm going to buy it. Okay, how you do it? You got to ask me directly. Somehow, am I going to buy it? Will I give you money for this product? Okay, you don't have to do that here. You have to ask them for the job or something. You might not be at the point of asking for the job, but you might be at the point of asking. Make sure you come out of that thing, that job interview, that first interview, that whatever, with something concrete. When can I call back and ask? What? Not just what is the next step, but what would be the next thing I should do in this process. Try and get some action where you have an opportunity to call them back, okay? And remember, don't be afraid. They're hiring people. They want to hire people like you, right? They want to talk to you. They invited you to talk, right? They are interested in you. You bring value to them. You won't get it if you don't ask for it, all right? Make progress. And it isn't personal. So this is my notes to you. We'll end on this. I have one more slide of tips and stuff. You can look at those. But just remember, job hunt, you aren't like taking their time. They want to hire people like you. So get yourself to the point where you're willing to position yourself and ask them, am I the right person for this job? Nobody wants to do that because they don't like the rejection of yes or no. And it's not personal. Sometimes there's 100 candidates and they're all as qualified as you, and they got to pick one. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not qualified too. So don't take it personal. But try to get to a point where you have some kind of conclusion. Otherwise, you don't know how the thing went. You don't know if you should call back. You're waiting for months. I don't know. I'm waiting to see if they call back. You don't know what happened. So there was some AI in there, some sales. Hopefully it helps you a little bit. It's something you're doing. If you have questions on a Houston call, feel free to come on over and talk to me, all right? Go. Go home.